Welcome to another Cortecloud tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to discuss how we can change the structure of our cabinets. Basically, in Cortecloud, you can change many aspects regarding the base, the stretchers, back type, and toe kick in your cabinetry. So let's jump right into it and see how we can adapt the construction of our cabinetry in the platform. I'll go to cortecloud.com and select my country, in my case, United States. If you haven't created your account yet, you can just click register and create your account for free. So I've got my account created already, and I'm going to log in and hit new order, modules, and select my service provider. Let's name our client Mary, and we'll begin by selecting a base cabinet and see how we can change the bottom and the stretchers in the structure. So I'll select a base cabinet. I'll select this one door, single door base cabinet and make some changes. For my room, in this case kitchen, just round up the measurements 17, 27, 21 inches and select material. A 3/4 white panel, and I would use the blue edge band just to highlight the changes that we're going to apply to the cabinet. In the back, I'll use 1/4 inch white back as well. Okay, there we go. This is our structure. So first of all, I'm going to Preferences, Advanced, and Stretchers. Let's make some changes in our stretchers and see how it goes in the cabinet. First of all, double frontal stretcher. What does this even mean? This means that I can thicken my frontal stretcher this way. Okay, so I'm gonna hide the doors here just to have a precise look. And this is the double frontal stretcher selected. If you don't have a double frontal stretcher, this is how it's gonna look like. A single stretcher in the front and double frontal stretcher is gonna like double up. I can do the same in the rear stretcher. I can double the rear stretcher, yes, or I can thicken the rear stretcher. In this case, this is how the cabinet's going to look like. Important to notice that the fasteners are going to be applied just in one stretcher, okay? So in this case, the lower stretcher, and in this case, the rear stretcher. I'm not going to double any stretchers. I'm going back to the original configuration. And I can change the frontal and rear stretcher orientation by changing these parameters. So frontal stretcher orientation, I'm going to vertical. This is how it's going to look like, a vertical frontal stretcher, okay? Many woodworkers, many carpenters use the frontal stretcher this way in case something heavy goes on the top of the cabinet. So it's an interesting option if you consider putting something very heavy on the top. I can also double the frontal stretcher if I change the orientation. This is how it's going to look like if you double the frontal stretcher. I'm going back to the original configuration. And I can change the stretcher's width. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to 5/1/8 in the front. As you can see, the frontal stretcher is wider and is even touching my hinge over here. I'm going to 4 3/4. Okay, you have a wider frontal stretcher which is not touching the hinge. Okay, I'm going back to the horizontal position. Important to notice that if you change the rear stretcher orientation to horizontal with a dado back, you're gonna get the dado on the stretcher as well. But if you change this configuration, rear stretcher assembly, in relation to the back, if you configure in front of the back, the rear stretcher is going to be pushed to the front or to the inner part of the cabinet, not having the dado back applied to it. So this is going to be the result where the dado back transpasses the stretcher. You can even apply screws to get a more solid construction. You can also produce or not the rear stretcher. So if I go to produce rear stretcher now, I'm just gonna simply remove the rear stretcher, okay? So regarding stretcher configuration, this is how you can change them. And there's one more configuration that you can apply here on cabinet assembly, which is you can put the stretcher between the sides as it is in this drawing, or you can put it on the top. And in my case, I'm gonna put the stretchers above sides. This is how it's gonna look like. And I'm going back to stretchers and put the rear stretcher. This is the result, okay? So you can see that the dado here and going all through to the top of the stretcher. You can even thicken the stretchers. If you double the frontal stretcher, yes, by doubling the frontal stretcher, you're gonna double the rear stretcher as well to maintain the consistency of the cabinet. Okay, I'm not gonna double in stretchers. I'm going to no. But basically, you get the idea that you can put the stretchers on the top of the sides. One last configuration you can apply to your cabinetry here in your base cabinets is the bottom assembly. If you produce the bottom between sides, this is the result you're going to get. If you put the bottom underneath the sides, you have to observe that the bottom is going to transpass the sides, and the sides are going to be applied on the top of it, this way. So in Cortecloud, you can make many changes in the cabinet assembly as you like, as you're used to in your shop. I'm going to save this one, and as I add another module, let's take this one, tipodor and drawers, you're going to see that all the configurations are going to be inherited to this one. The stretchers on the top, the bottom transpassing the sides, dado back to the top as well. I just need to apply the materials to the drawers, edge band as well, and drawers bottom as well, white. So as you configure your first module in your project, you can see that the configurations are applied to the next one to maintain the consistency in other cabinets you add to the project. I'm gonna save. And let's move on to the last base cabinet we're gonna have a look at, which is this one, editable cabinet. Basically, this is the same cabinet structure we've already looked at. I'm going to advanced preferences, cabinet assembly again, and put the stretchers between the sides to highlight one important thing. If you have a cabinet with dividers, which is my case here, I'm going to produce the frontal stretcher in a vertical position, and by doing that, you notice that you're going to have to cut a recess here on the dividers to place the stretcher correctly. Okay, if you produce the frontal stretcher in a horizontal position, no problem, you don't need any recesses. But if you put a vertical stretcher, you're going to have to cut a recess on the dividers, because the rear stretcher is horizontal and the front stretcher is vertical. That being said, I'm going to basic configurations again, and I'm going to change the columns width. So the first column, I'm going to put 8 inches width, okay. The second column, I'm going to 15 inches width, and the third column, 30 inches width. Okay, so in this kind of cabinet, you've got different spaces you can apply to each divider and fill it up with different parts as well. So I'm going to split space 1, yes. Split space 2, yes. Split space 4, yes. Okay, so this is the configuration I'll get by splitting those spaces. I can even change shelves height. I'm going to apply 8 inches to the first column, 8 inches to the second column, and 15 inches to the third column. So this is the result we're going to get. Okay, so you have this editable cabinet here in Cortecloud as well. Very well, I'll hit save, and let's move on to the closets, which is the last cabinet type we're going to have a look at. I'll have this first closet cabinet with 1 column. It's going to just height to 80 inches. Okay, and as you can see, you have this rear stretchers in the closet structure, which is a very large structure, justifying us to have those stretchers if you want. So if you go to Preferences, Advanced, and Stretchers, you have those closet stretchers, so to say, that you can produce or not. Produce rear reinforcing stretcher. If I hit no, no stretchers are going to be produced. If I hit yes, stretchers are going to be produced, and I can change the width as well. So if I go to 5.5 inches, I'm going to produce wider stretchers. Okay, so this is a very important thing you need to know when producing closet structures if you want to have a sturdier construction. And the last thing we need to consider, and is very important in cabinet structures, cabinet assembly regarding the top. Well, the top you can basically do the same thing as in the bottom. You can produce the top above sides, which is going to give me the top transpassing the cabinet, so to say. That's going to give me the top above the sides, as you can see here on the representation. And the toe kick and the bottom, they work kind of together in the cabinet in Cortecloud structure when you consider closets. When you change this configuration, toe kick assembly, I'm using bottom and toe kick between the sides. So this is precisely the result I'm getting here. The toe kick and the bottom are in between the sides, as you can see. And if I put the bottom and toe kick underneath the sides, you can see that the bottom's gonna be produced like this with the sides on the top and the toe kick as a separate structure. Okay, so by changing this parameter, this configuration, you've got a very different toe kick and base structure. And the last one, bottom in between sides and toe kick underneath the sides. This is the result, where the bottom's going to be in between and the toe kick still is underneath the structure. Okay, so it's up to you to decide if you want this or that structure. You just go to the toe kick assembly configuration and you change it as you like. The last thing you need to consider about toe kick, I'm just going to adjust the height to 40 inches just to get a notion of this parameter, which is toe kick. I can adjust the recess. From the recess is 13/16 of an inch. I'm going to 1/2 an inch. So I can adjust this recess. Let's go to 2 inches recess on the front, 1/2 an inch recess in the back, and you can change it as you like as well. So by changing those recesses, you get a wider or a narrower toe kick in your cabinet. And lastly, the toe kick height, you can adjust it as you like here. You can produce a very high toe kick by changing this parameter as well. I'm going to hit save, and all the changes I've made to those models are going to be applied to the next one that I insert if it's in the same category as the previous one. Okay, so I hope this is helpful to you if you want to use Cortecloud to produce your cabinetry. If you have any questions, just let us know in the comments down below, and I hope to see you soon in our next tutorial.